Do you have a question that you wanted to raise? And
I do.
we'll take a few, and then we could maybe address them. Yes.
Hi, I'm Crystal Kyle from the Newcomb College Center for Research on Women in New Orleans. And I've been real interested listening to all the panelists mention storytelling and talk about the role of storytelling in your work and storytelling as part of a conscious strategy. I'm the director of Sophie Lab at the INCRO in New Orleans, and check out my t-shirt. You know, I dreamed I came to the INCRO wearing a Defend New Orleans t-shirt with my colors. One thing we learned in the 4 years since Hurricane Katrina is to give away your story is to give away your power, and to give away your story even to other feminists is to give away your power. So I think something, and I'd love to talk with everybody this weekend about this, about social networking. New media and participatory media does scale. The Newcomb College Center for Research on Women next Monday will be starting a program collaboratively with women and men in Rwanda on storytelling and on digital storytelling and the role of storytelling. So I'd just like for y'all to talk a little bit more about that, both from the perspective of strategies for sharing research and for changing these stories.
Mm-hmm. Would you want to talk about some of your stories a little bit? How would you want to take on these two questions about priorities and how we really convey what it is we're trying to do through the stories and the kind of changes we're trying to make?
Sure. I mean, I can certainly start, and I know Rinku is more expert than I on a lot of this. I think that notion of, excuse me, of story or narrative is hugely important, and it's something that those of us in the progressive social change business have gotten incredibly wrong over the last several decades. We've thought that just talking about facts and specific policies, thank you, would be enough to convince people, and that has never been true in history, right? So this is the interactive part of our panel. If I were to say to you, what were the two elements of the Obama presidential campaign's narrative? Two elements, what were they? Change, hope, right. If I were to say to you, this is a brand, car plus safe, what brand? Volvo. Nobody said Subaru, right? So we know that that's their narrative. They understand their audience, and that's not about facts. It's about values and beliefs and vision and what you care about. I want to keep my kids safe in my car. I want a president who I can believe in and who's going to change the terrible situation we're in. But for most of the issues and for our vision of social justice, we haven't done the same thing. One of the things that our organization is working on is with immigrant rights activists. The anti-immigrant narrative is very disciplined, two elements. Law and order, right? What part of illegal don't you understand? And overwhelming of scarce resources. And you hear a lot of water metaphors. Oh, the new waves of immigrants flooding our systems, inundating, Lou Dobbs has got like 3 or 4, 5 water metaphors every show. The pro-immigrant movement in our country until quite recently has not had that core narrative. And the same could be said of almost all of the issues that we care about, and more importantly, of the way they fit together. So I'd love to talk more about that, but let me stop so others can get in.
Rinku,
I can do social networking and so on. Just to round out Alan's point, the reason that stories are important is because the human brain works in frames. It has dominant frames and it has competing frames. And frames are systems of thinking, they're ways of thinking. America is a white Protestant country. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, etc. And those frames are set by generations of us hearing the same story and passing it down over hundreds and thousands of years. And what we know from social psychologists is that when people hear a fact that contradicts their dominant frame, they don't change their frame, they throw away the fact. And the only way to trigger a different frame, which is buried there somewhere in the hard stuff of the brain, or the soft stuff of the brain, is through images and stories and myths and those kinds of things. So it doesn't mean that there's no room for facts. I'm certainly very happy to have Heather and Irasema and Lisa here, but it means that how you use the fact is an art. and the fact is buried in the narrative. So we at the Applied Research Center have recently made a strategic decision as a think tank to make our media program the engine of our organization, because we understand the political moment we're in, and we understand this social psychological challenge we have around the story of racism in the United States. And so we're on Facebook, we have widgets, we have a blog that publishes race commentary daily. And since last November, when we really started doing this, we've doubled the size of our email list. So because of the frequency, because of the frequency of product, but also the frequency of interaction. So because we have a blog, people can comment. We can see what numbers of people are reading which story. So we can see which kinds of stories our folks are responding to and which kinds they're kind of like, And so we need to have that kind of constant feedback in order to make strategic adjustments in this age of 24/7 news cycles, of enormous numbers of media things hitting people's brains and eyes and ears. And it's a set of strategies that really most social justice organizations are way behind on. And luckily the right is too, so this is a place where we might actually be able to make some progress and catch up.